meeting is being recorded.
Got it. Okay. Wonderful, friends. Today is Thursday, September 14th, 2023. Never before has there ever been, nor will there ever be, a day quite like this one. And Julia and I are so happy that you've joined us live or catching the replay to learn some card making strategies. My computer seems to be freezing a little bit tonight, so I'm going to keep on moving in hopes that it's working. And if I get a message otherwise from Julia, I will restart. Today we have projects that feature an apple set called let's see if I can find what it's called. Apple Harvest. And Apple Harvest has some beautiful line art drawing that you can stamp and then color. And tonight I'm going to be using a special watercoloring technique. Okay. And then also, so we're making the Apple Harvest card. And this is a cool trick for using designer series paper in a clever way. I'm going to show you how I cut that. And then we're going to have some fun with some holiday supplies. These may look familiar to some of you. When we first started doing our classes through Zoom, we used some of these similar kit products, so they'll look familiar. But tonight we're going to make a card as well as a little gift box with some tags. So I'll lay those out. And you, of course, can use the materials in the way that you would like in order to add items from your stash, embellishments, or other colors, and make the project your own. So let me get started we're going to begin with the Christmas items. I'm going to set my Apple Harvest aside. And you've got your lunch bag tonight, remember, with your goodies in there. I'm going to pull out what I have to share with you. And this is a great gift package. Don't discard this beautiful white lunch bag. It's ready to stamp or color and use as gift wrap. Ready to stamp or color. All right, now in your gift box are lots of little pieces and parts. So I'm going to share with you how I use the parts to create a card and 3 tags, but you of course can use the supplies the way you would like. I'm going to do a little bit of stamping. So I've got some Poppy Parade red ink, cheerful red, ready to go, and some stamps. So I'm setting aside my gift box. I'll empty out all these treasures. And this again is gift packaging, friends. So it's ready for you to enclose your tags as a gift, or other jewelry or candies, or be creative with how you can decorate it. Anytime a box has that clear cover, I think it just welcomes you to put a little surprise in there. You can wrap it with tissue paper so they can't see what's inside, but they can still open and have that delight. So
or you could put in something with a whole lot of dimensions in it. In the box.
Yes, make a shadow box. Yes.
Yeah.
Years ago, I used these boxes with children at the YMCA to make a summer scene, and we used sandpaper to create, tore sandpaper to make like the beach, and had little palm trees and things. So yes, so a box like this is perfect for a little diorama. That would be great. So keep your box in your bag ready to do some creating on your own. And Julia and I love when we see what you're doing with our kits. So if you ever want to add pictures, you can do that in the comments when this is posted on YouTube or Facebook. So I'll show you how I divided up the parts in order to make some cards. So I had what maybe I'll do so that you can see them is I'll lay them up in front, and then we'll kind of sort out the pieces. And then you can see here how I distributed them. I love the deer. The favorite element in this collection for me is this silver foil deer. So I wanted that to be kind of the featured item on my card. And I love the shine of it, so that there's the various textures. You'll notice this blue piece of pool party cardstock I embossed for you using my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So it's got those snowflakes, snow falling and snowflakes raised. And I've shared with you before that my family loves cards with texture. We love to feel, so this one has the shiny foil and the texture on the blue. I really like that one. So because the deer was my favorite element, I knew I wanted to use that over here in my card. Oh, I need to go a little bit over so you can see me. I'm going to try to position things so you can see all 4 little projects as we go along with this set. Okay. Now here I'm going to just line up, sort of sort out the pieces that I'm using for the other elements. So I have this tag. It has a little hole ready for you to punch out. I'm going to do that, or you can keep it solid depending on how you're going to layer it. Same with this red one. Let's see, I've got my dimensionals, my little mini dimensionals. We'll have those handy. I've got 2 pieces of this silver cord, and you'll notice I used one on the sled, which will tie together to make the pull rope for the sled. So that'll go in the sled pile here. And the other one I combined with a piece of green ribbon to add a little bit of extra sparkle to this project. So it has the green sort of grosgrain cotton ribbon, and then the silver cording. Let's see, here I have the green, because again, I love that traditional color contrast of the garden green and the poppy parade red. The tree is designed, trying to reconnect. Let's see if it's working. I apologize, Julia, if mine's having trouble tonight.
Well, certainly your hands are doing fine and we have your voice. So those are the
Great. So I won't even worry about my face because you don't need that. I'm not even going to worry. So I'm going to just focus. If I get off camera though, Julia, you just remind me, okay?
Okay, will do.
Okay. So for the tree, it's designed as a tag, but I'm going to cut that part off because again, it's a favorite element I'm going to add to my tags. So there we are with the, and you can see this rectangle piece that's just sort of a muted watercolor design. I loved having that to kind of give a little rest of my eyes behind the deer. And it's again, a personal preference, but this has a lot of busyness to it because of the texture here. And I wanted to kind of mute that a little bit so that the texture would be a frame around it, but that behind the deer, there would be a little bit of kind of muted snowfall there. Okay, that's sort of, I'm just sharing with you some of my design strategy, right? Which I think is interesting. These guys I'm going to layer with lots of dimensionals to make my what do you call it? My snowflakes jumping out. And then this is a little trick to make a wreath. I thought this would be, if somebody is putting this by their door, people have like a welcome sign or artwork at their front door. People might have an old sled with a wreath on it. So we're going to take these little pine boughs and we're going to put them onto the sled. So now that we've divided up our pieces, I'm going to go ahead and start with the sled one. So at first I'll just add my little holly here. These are punched and ready. And then just so remember, if you're working along with me tonight, I sometimes go a little quicker because I have a lot of things I want to share. So know that you'll be able to watch this recording on YouTube and Facebook. And we invite you then to be able to pause, to rewind, to replay, to fast forward for your own comfort. So I'm going to slide those over and we'll begin with the sled card or sled tag. Now you might decide you want the sled tag to be the card, and you could make this element and put it on your card. So lots of options. Okay, kind of for me, I sort of picked what is my favorite element, and I made that the card. The card is more likely something someone will display, but tags, my mom always puts tags on her Christmas tree. So each year you look back and you have little crafted tags or even just the nice handwriting from store-bought tags. They make wonderful little ornaments or a banner for garlands.
The sled looks like it should be on the tree.
It really does. It's a beautiful little ornament piece. So we're going to go ahead and tie the silver cord through the little holes here. I don't really have a great trick for that, except know that it's long enough that if you need to trim some of it off, it's okay. I'm going to take the edges and I'm just going to make a square knot. So that is right over left and then left over right. If you were a scout, then you might know about, or a 4-H'er, then you might know about square knots And it's okay if you use up some of it. It doesn't have to be a really long cord. So now I'm going to do the other side, put it through, and my knot is going to go left over right, and then right over left. However, you would make a knot like you're tying your shoe, or in this case, it's a square knot. Are any of you sailors? Did you learn knots, nautical knots? Anybody? Mhm.
I did not.
You did, but I learned knots when I was a nanny in New Hampshire during college. The two little boys that I nannied with, their family were avid sailors, and they taught me a great deal about knots and about nautical things, among many other wonderful things I learned with their family. So to make this little wreath, what I'm going to do is use some adhesive. This is our Tombow multi-purpose glue, and I'm just going to make a little circle about the size of a quarter, maybe. You could trace a quarter if you wanted, or you could have a punch to trace. This will work. A liquid glue is going to be easier than dimensionals, obviously, for this. They're just too tiny to use with the dimensionals. So if you have a kind of Elmer's or a liquid glue or a fine tip glue, that's what I suggest using. And we're just going to let that dry for a moment so that it becomes a little tackier and a little more solid. So it's not going to spread as much. I'm just going to let it sit for a minute while I do some stamping. So the banner tag that's in your kit is longer than what I needed for this greeting. So this will give you some options depending on what words you want to put on your sled banner. I'm going to use the stamp Warm Wishes, and this is from the stamp set called Berry Cute. And it's indeed has polar bears, hence the name Berry Cute, but it has some wonderful greetings with, I think, really interesting fonts. This Warm Wishes is like, I think, a really inviting, youthful font.
So
And
you put the glue on, but you haven't put the green.
Right, I'm just gonna let that sit for a minute, because this kind of glue, if you let it sit, it'll become more tacky, almost like a little glue dot, or like a repositionable glue. It almost, if you let it dry completely, you can almost use it like a Post-it note. You can put it on, take something off, put it on, take something off. Okay. So, so I'm just going to let it dry a little bit. It's still going to be really tacky, but this way it won't spread out when I put the branches on.
Okay.
So I've set that aside for a moment. I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to go over toward the left. I'm leaving this part over here blank because I'm actually going to trim it. So using my scissors, I'm going to mirror this banner over on this side. And that means I'll just kind of clip in from the bottom and clip in from the top is a good way to do it. Sort of at that it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're kind of creating that banner shape. And then that we can put on with our dimensionals. So the dimensionals you have in your kit are these really fun little foam mini dimensionals. And remember, working with dimensionals, the easiest thing, take it off the sheet, put it on your item, and then peel off the other side, what's called the little wax liner. Once you get the dimensional where you want it, then you peel off the other piece. Okay, we'll flip that over and add that to the banner. Now this is, you can see how it's still white, but some of it is more clear now. Can you see that on the camera? That the glue circle, some parts that were thicker are still white, but the other parts are just shiny. So it's ready now. I think I can go ahead and I'm just going to place the little bows here in a circle around, and I'm overlapping them about halfway, all the way around the circle, so that it's going to look like a wreath, like we might have at our front door, on your front door, or on a sled, or sometimes people put ice skates. I love that display at their front door. They might put some skates or sled. And I used 7 or 8, so you might have one left over. You can add it and make it thicker. Like this part is a little thin. I can go ahead and just put that on there to kind of fill it in a little bit. So the idea is that it's not glued fully down. It's meant to have a little bit of like parts of it poking up, but you can make sure that it's got enough glue to hold them in place. Okay, so that's our little sled one. And like Julia said, this looks perfect for a little ornament on the tree. Now, already I forgot something I was going to remind you right at the start, is that tags are great to put a to from, if you like, on the back. That means then you just would write a little note. You don't have to write a big message, but I love, like I said, my mom puts tags on the Christmas tree. And so it's fun because it would have your grandma's writing or your sister's writing on it. And I think you'll agree that one of the favorite things to see of a favorite person is your name and their handwriting. Does that make sense? Like when you get a postcard or a letter in the mail. I got one today from my friend Meredith from Tennessee, and I know her handwriting, and it just made me so happy to see Missy Shipman on the envelope, and it was in Meredith's handwriting. So the to from that I'm going to use tonight is from the stamp set called Sending Cheer. And this has some fun greetings in a bold font. And it also has some traditional kind of holiday things that you could also use for birthdays, like the present or the envelope could be for other holidays, but a sweet little gingerbread boy and stocking. So we're using the simple greeting that says to from. So what we would want to do is do this before we do any embellishing, because now it's potentially could be a little bit bumpy. So I'll just go ahead and it should be okay. But what we're going to do before we put the other ones together is put the greeting on the back. You could also handwrite to and from on the back, just so it has that place to write a little message. Okay, next let's do this, this wood. It's kind of like a wood palette that has the pool party polka dots, and I just added some of the holly here. This one, I'll be honest, was the last one I made. Like after I split up my favorite parts, these were kind of the least favorite parts. So you might have things in your stash to make this more Christine or more Kathy or more Nancy or more Julia. You might dress it up with different supplies, but using the things that are in the kit, you could make it like this. So right away, I'm going to flip it over and put my to from, so I don't forget. Okay, because I want to be able to write in my, so like for my son Billy, it would be Billy from mom, and then he's got his name written in my handwriting. Okay, so for this one, to make this loop, I call this a library loop or a bookmark loop, and that's this ribbon tassel kind of at the top. I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm going to layer both the silver and the green together and fold in half. So now I have these loops, right? I have a silver loop and a green loop. I'm going to wiggle the loops through the hole. It's easier when you just have one. I probably should have shown you the other one first. It's a little trickier when you have two pieces of ribbon, but you're going to put your holes through, or the loops through, to the front to back. And then you take the tails and pull them through the loop. And this just makes that nice sort of finished topper here. You can wiggle it around a little bit so the silver and green show. But I call that either a library loop or like a bookmark topper. Just adds a pull tab or a little bit of design. Now, some tags, you want to have a really long ribbon, right? So you can tie it on to a gift. These are shorter. So these are great to put on a card, like if you decided you wanted to mount it on a card, or you could tape them onto your project. If, for example, if you were using the box like this, you could just put a little piece of tape on the back and put it there, you know, so if these aren't meant to wrap around a whole big thing.
Yeah, and if you had a bunch of like smaller, like a whole bunch of ribbon that you did the loop thing, then it would be a real tassel.
It would be a tassel, and it would look just very happy and cheerful. So, okay, so that for this one, I'm going to show you a trick to change the shape of a stamp. So this one says Sending Cheer, but the sending, I'll stamp it just on my paper here. This, if you stamp it the way it's designed, the sending is above the cheer. And notice my banner, it's not quite big enough. Oh, it actually almost is, but I'm going to show you this trick so that I can put sending and then cheer next to it. Okay. Now you can use Post-it notes for this. Remember last month we did a fun masking trick. Tonight I'm going to show you how to do it using Scotch tape. Okay. So you can do it with a Post-it note, or I'm going to show you with Scotch tape. Now, the first thing though, is to be sure your stamp is very clean. So this is a Stampin' Chamois. It's just a wet, it's very similar to a chamois you might use to wash your car or do other household things, but it's basically just got water in it. You could clean your stamp with a paper towel or a baby wipe. You want to make sure it's clean. And then we're going to tape off part of the word right now. So the only problem with this sharing with you this tape is that it's clear and it might be hard to see on camera. I couldn't find my washi tape quick enough this afternoon to show you that, but I'm going to cover up the word cheer with the tape. Just tape it right onto the stamp. Okay. Now I'm going to ink up the stamp because can you see that on camera? I'm going to ink it up and I have to pull that tape away because see, it's this big blob of red ink. I'm going to pull that away and put it somewhere in your scrap pile where it's not going to get all over all your other stuff, to kind of have a space that's your garbage pile tonight. Okay. So now I just have the word sending inked up and I can stamp that. And I was rushing a little bit. So a little bit of the cheer wasn't covered up very well. But those of you who've stamped with me for a while, you know that that doesn't offend me. These are gifts handmade with love, and they're not perfect. They're perfectly imperfect. They're just right. So sometimes they'll have a smudge, a fingerprint, and be very personalized. Sometimes a little bit of glue will show, or there'll be a little tear or a fold, but they're made with love, and that's important to me. So
it just looks like it's underlined a little bit.
Exactly. Right. Thank you. Yes. So there are no mistakes in stamping, only opportunities for layering and embellishing. So now I'm going to go ahead and cover up the word sending, because now I just want to expose the word cheer. All right. So same thing. I'm going to ink it up with my ink pad. Going to pull that messy ink away. And then I'm going to stamp cheer next to the sending. So it'll say sending cheer. Now you can also do this with markers. We've done that before, where with watercolor markers, you can ink up just one part of your stamp and then clean it off and do the other. But that's just another strategy if you are trying to omit a part of your stamp, or you want to reposition the order of the words. So let's find our little dimensionals again, little mini dimensionals. We're going to pop up the sending cheer. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Going to put those in place, right side up. And then I can just tuck these little holly in here with some glue. 3 is nice, 1, 2, 3, or you have 4 little holly leaves. So you could do 2 and 2. You might have something at home that will make nice little holly berries. We have 1 little red berry from the inside of your tag. If you wanted to add that somewhere just to have a little bit of the red color, I might do that. Let's go ahead, add just a little bit of glue. And again, be creative with things you might already have in your craft stash that you could add to embellish the tag if it doesn't quite seem your style. There we go. And I will just add a little dot and put the red berry there for fun. Okay, so there's my sending cheer. Put them so you can see side by side as we're working. This next one is really quick and easy. We're going to flip it over quickly to do the to and from.
On this one, I really admire the circle inside the red.
Yes.
Is that, I mean, it doesn't even look like it's printed separately. It looks like it's all printed together.
Yeah, I think when Stampin' Up! Did this, that it was all same with this one here. However, the process works of printing was that it would just be a full, clean impression. It's obviously intended to make it look like it's another piece of wood or paper on top, but it would have been create it all at one time. I love it too. So you might not want to cover it up as much as I have. You can decide if you want to put your snowflakes there. It's the wood grain texture is really clever, I think, as well. For the snowflake, we're just going to layer it up with lots and lots of dimensionals. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got a generous amount here. I'm going to go ahead and put them on all 6 parts of the snowflake, on the big part.
Wow.
And also on the 6 of the smaller. So this one just has a lot of depth to it. I didn't do any other stamping. I kept it really simple. If you have some gems, it'd be beautiful to put a gem in the center. I think something sparkly, but otherwise just the shine of the silver printed on the snowflake, I think gives a nice contrast to the wood texture and makes it interesting. So lots of these little dimensionals, they're hopping around here on my table.
Mhm.
And then I'll go ahead and put it, you could put one in the middle too, I think, just to give it support. This is one that people might want to handle quite a bit and, you know, puzzle it out and look at it and display it. So we want to be sure they're secure. Take all those wax liners off, the hexagons. We laugh in our family about, well, my family doesn't find it as funny as I do, but where we find these all over our house, these little hexagon papers from the dimensionals. So yeah, I'm not sure that my husband thinks it's really funny, but we don't have any pets, but some of my friends, they find them like on their dog's fur, you know, or anywhere in their house. It's kind of funny. So we'll peel those off. And then we'll go ahead and work on the card, the one with the deer and the tree. So you can offset it if you like. I like the depth built up where it's the same dimension, but it also would look nice if it's this way, but then it would be tricky to get the adhesives lined up properly, like because this distance here isn't quite big enough to put the dimensional. So that's partly why I lined them up this way. But I also like how it just really reminds me of Frozen, the Anna and Elsa Disney movie, that a lot of that 3D kind of snow effect. So we'll make our library loop at the top. Again, you fold the ribbon in half, tuck the loop from front to back, and then pull the tails through the loop. Just wiggle it gently because this is cardstock. We don't want to tear that, but just kind of wiggle it gently and you'll have that little tassel top. Okay, nice. Terrific. So we have 3 happy tags here and we can put them right into our box if you like. They'll store nicely here till you're ready to use them for your gift giving. Or this would be a really lovely little gift to give a neighbor too. One of my favorite gifts that I gave to our boys' teachers when they were in elementary school was a roll of wrapping paper, a roll of tape, and some handmade tags. So you give it to them like at Thanksgiving, so they have it way ahead. And then you're done with having to do your teacher gifts. You don't have to think about it when it gets to be December. And it's just a fun, useful thing. And it was still a little bit of handmade love from me, but it also was just a quick Dollar Tree or Walmart or wherever you want to get some pretty paper and tape. So that's a fun idea. For our last one now, we've got this beautiful Poppy Parade envelope and a white base. Now this is a portrait card, which means it's standing tall. And I just cut the paper in half in this direction instead of in the shorter direction. And that makes a card that sometimes we call an easel card. It stands up tall. It's not required for this particular design, but I do like that it has such vertical movement to it. I do like that it's designed, set up that way. Again, what it is just half a sheet of the standard 8.5 by 11 cardstock. We're going to glue our embossed piece. Now, I like how the snowflakes are popping up. So I think that that's the top when I'm making it. And I like that the snow is not as thick up at the top as it's falling. And then as it gets closer to the ground, there's more of it kind of stacking up. So in my opinion, my card, I like my snow to be heavier at the base. Again, it's personal preference, but I'm going to put glue on the back with the Tombow glue, just a thin line along the outside. And then I usually kind of make a scribble in the middle, but basically you just need to cover the outside. Or if you were using glue dots or a tape runner, just each corner is really what you want to secure when you're putting a base layer on like this. Place it onto the card so there's a nice frame of white all the way around the outside on all 4 sides. And then we can build it up like a collage here. We can start with that piece that's going to mute things a little bit. This is just a watercolor wash. It might be hard to see on camera, but there's a little more blue at the top here, a little more white at the bottom. So again, I'm thinking that the deer is going to be standing in the snow. So I want that white to be at the bottom. And I'm placing it more to the right because I want to have room for the tree and the deer. And I want to be able to showcase this beautiful embossed pieces. Next goes the tree. And remember, I cut off that little circle tag. Okay, going to add some glue and place that here so that it's almost right along the edge of that rectangle, but you want to kind of have it near the edge.
You have it up a little from the bottom?
I do. I have a little bit of the white. Actually, on my first one, the tree's even a little higher. It's centered is okay, or a little bit more toward the top. Okay. Because you remember, we're going to add our deer here to the bottom. Now the deer, I want him to really stand out. So I'm putting him dimensionals behind there. I want that to really be calling you, like pulling you into the card because the deer is coming forward. So he needs some dimensionals. He's pretty gentle here, his antlers and legs. I'm just going to be focused on securing his head, and then I'll put a couple here across the body. It's a card that when you put it in the envelope, you want to just be patient and not rush, because you don't want the antlers to get caught. For example, when we're putting this in, I'll demonstrate here. I just want to be sure I'm careful that his feet get tucked in and that the antlers get tucked in so that they won't be folded when the person opens up. Not the end of the world if they get a little crinkly, but because we aren't putting any adhesive here, you just have to be a little more gentle. If you wanted him to be more secure, you wouldn't use dimensionals. You could just put him flat onto the card. That would be okay too. There we are. And then I liked that little snowflake that was left. Let's see if I can, here it is, because there were 3 in your kit. The smallest one I just added here to, again, kind of balance. Otherwise it felt a little little empty here. This would be a good place to put a greeting if you didn't want to put your snowflake there.
Or if you had a sticker that was a moon sticker.
Yes, a moon sticker or a hand drawing of a moon would be beautiful there. What a good idea. So I'm just going to tap my snowflake, a little bit of glue, and secure that there. Yes, and if you had gems, you could add more sparkle here. Yep. You do have another little blue banner here. If you wanted to, you could turn it over and make it white, or you could have it be the matching blue and put a greeting or, a name of someone's name if you wanted it to be personalized for them. I liked the simplicity of just the snow falling and not having words, just having it be very peaceful. But you might have a greeting that's just right, a peaceful greeting that would seem appropriate, because it doesn't have to be Christmas. This is a really nice, gentle winter card. Could be for birthday or sympathy or friendship, thank you, any occasion, I think. Inside my sample, I did stamp Merry Christmas, because I intend to put this in my stash for Merry Christmas, but you don't have to do that. Okay, so those are our holiday things. It's fun each month leading up to December to do some holiday projects. So we'll continue to do that in October and November and December. But for September, I really wanted to show off this apple set, the apple harvest. Today I was driving from near Fulton across to Canandaigua. And so instead of going on the thruway, I traveled on Route 104. And there were so many beautiful orchards there. And then they were harvesting the corn. And it was a beautiful, beautiful drive. If you haven't been up that way near Lake Ontario, it's a fun, you feel like you're further away than we really are. It's kind of a fun little trip. So what I want to share with you is how I made these 3 designer series paper pieces, because your kit might have let me try to explain it. The 3 pieces that you have might go together differently than my sample here. So I want to show you how I came up with these puzzle pieces that are in your kit. To do that, I'm going to use my trimmer. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to use my trimmer to show you how it's called the stack and shuffle method. So I'm using 3 pieces of designer series paper. These measure, I think, 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm stacking them all together, 1, 2, 3. It's called the stack and shuffle. So we stack them up, and then I'm going to cut all of them at the same time. So first I'm cutting a piece that will be this sort of this top angle piece. Okay, so I want to cut from the right side across to the left side. Doesn't really matter exactly where, they're all going to come out a little bit differently, but since I made these together for the class I made them all at the same time, the shapes should be pretty similar. So now we have 3 of those, and then we're going to turn the paper now and cut from along this line here, cut line, down to the bottom. So I like to I use one of the lines from my trimmer to line that up so it's a 90-degree angle. Again, because you're cutting all 3 pieces at the same time, the puzzle works even if you make it into 8 pieces or 4 pieces. But with 3 pieces of paper, 3 cuts work really nicely. All right, so now I have 3 little stacks, right? I did the stack part. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to, let me move these things away. Okay, so I now have 3 piles. I'm going to separate them so that I have 3 cards. Let me see which one I want to start at. Yeah, so this is going to be a top. So this has a green at the top. This has a yellow at the top. And this one will have a red at the top. Okay. And you have one of those configurations. Now I'm going to take the next piece and I'm going to put the red here with the green, the yellow with the red, and the green with the yellow, as long as they're different from each other. Now I'm going to say, okay, this one doesn't have a red, so we'll put the red there. This one doesn't have yellow, so we'll put the yellow there. And this one needs green. So now you'll see I have 3 card layouts. I stacked them and then I shuffled them. So in your kit, you have 1 set of those puzzles. And it might take a minute for you to figure out how those pieces fit together on your green piece. So we'll do that together. You'll take your garden green base and then your 3 pieces of paper. Now, the one that's sort of largest is the one that's going to be at the top here. And there's only a little hint of matte behind this. I purposely there's just a little bit of green around all of it. So before we glue, we first just want to make sure we know where the pieces go. So you have a large piece with a straight edge at the top. Then you have a piece that's going to fit down in the left bottom corner, and a piece that will fit across the right side. Okay, so they should, because they were all cut at the same time and then shuffled, stack and cut, stack and shuffle, then you'll see they fit together just like a puzzle, and there'll be a little frame of green around the edge. And I do my best with the cutting to make it equivalent. Sometimes the green is a little bigger, like top to bottom than left to right, but that's because I'm a human person cutting. So you see how it has just a little bit of the green matte. So we can go ahead and glue that down, put the designer series paper. Does anybody have any questions about that, or did yours come out okay in terms of how the puzzle works? You'll notice because designer series paper has two sides, there's another plaid pattern on the back, but if you line them up so they're all that same size plaid, it should work. And I just start with one and work so that I have a small frame all around. I love these colors. They're the fun Harvest Primary School colors. This would be a fun card to give to a teacher that you know, or somebody who works in the school district or in our library to say thank you.
I just figured out something pretty weird.
Okay.
Let me put myself in here.
Yeah, let's see. Okay.
So I was confused because mine wasn't working out.
Yep, you need to.
I had that like that.
Yeah.
And like this, but it wasn't fitting. It's like there was extra space. And it's because I had accidentally flipped one
it over. Exactly.
And once I got it the right way, it all fit.
Very good. And it is a kind of bonus challenge because these papers are plaid on both sides. So it's easy to have the pattern mixed. Exactly. But yes, if you have it so that the shape, the size of the plaid is the same, it should work. So thanks for pointing that out. Exactly. You kind of have to puzzle it a little bit. And it's a satisfying thing, I think, once you do it, it feels like, oh, I figured that out. So we've got those adhered. And then we're going to do a little bit of stamping. You can see here the reasoning for why I wanted just a narrow border of green was because the punches that I used to make the focal point were pretty close in size. And so you just had that nice little echo of green. And I wanted it to be very similar. So that's why, just to pull out an explanation, with the blue card, there's a little wider bit of white, and that's my standard cutting. That's the easiest measurement. It's just 4 by 5 1/4, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So it's very easy 1/4 inch marks. This is a little more fussy time for me because I'm working with 1/8 inches instead of the quarters, but I like it for this design because it mimics the amount of green that's showing around the circle. Okay. So we're going to stamp using our Memento ink. You could use StazOn if you have to. StazOn is an alcohol-based ink that will dry quickly and it won't bleed the watercoloring. And so, but I prefer Memento ink because it's non-alcohol based. It doesn't have an odor, and I think it's a great true black. So even though we're going to be using watercoloring tonight on this, I'm still choosing to use the Memento ink. And you'll see that this is a distinctive stamp, which means it has some shading already kind of created in there by the designer. So when we color, having that black as the base is going to help darken the color around there without me having to really do a lot of artistry, I guess is the way to explain it. So what I want to go ahead.
Fancy water brush that you had for another project.
Yes, it's from another month. Exactly. If you have that, that's what I'm going to be using tonight. If you don't, you could try colored pencils. It actually would look lovely even without the coloring, but because there's a nice coloring in the papers. But search what you might have in your drawer in your kitchen. If you have some colored pencils or some markers, or if you have the water pen from a couple months ago, I'm going to show you how I create a palette on my clear block. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the Real Red, and I'm going to open my pad, and then I'm just going to push it down on this clear block. So now I have a little palette of color here to pick up the paint. You can also do it. Sometimes the old style cases are easier. The new style cases, it's tricky, but if you push in the middle of the pad, a little bit of the ink will transfer in here and you can use that as a palette. But what I found is fun. I feel like a real artist when I create this palette because I'm going to be using 3 colors. I'm going to take a little, actually, I'm going to use 4. So I'm going to leave a little bit of room for that 4th color. So this is some pecan pie, just a little bit of that nice soft brown. And got my garden green. I'll put that here. Okay, so you can see I'm building up a little color palette. And then I'm going to need just a little bit of petal pink for some stamping on the inside. So this is harder to see. It's a lovely light pink color. And we'll use that as well. So let me put this on the white. I think it'll show up better. You can see the colors we're working with. And I let that dry a little bit. Probably when you're using this kind of ink, you really want to let it dry even a little longer, because since we're going to be mixing water in, we don't want it to bleed. But let's see how we do. I'm going to put my camera a little bit lower. Try that so you can maybe see a little. I can hold it up too. So this is actually a new pen tonight. So I put water in it. I have to make sure that I get it, the juice is flowing, right? I need to get it so that there's some good water coming out. And I'm going to start with the little bit of brown and do the stem. So I'm picking up from my palette, picking up a little of this ink, and then I'm going to just paint it where I'd like it to be. And it's pretty dark because I had nice full strength here. If I want to make it less dark, I can wiggle off some first on my scrap paper and do that. But I think it's okay to have some bold brown there. Now I'm going to pick up the green, and I am going to let this get off a little bit to dilute it a little bit so that it's not quite full strength. See how I'm just pulling it around on this block to kind of water it down a little bit. The light is right over it, isn't it? There we go. Okay. So I'm just blurring that a little bit. And then I'm going to just swoosh it over onto the leaf. Now, again, it's pretty strong, thick color. I can make it thinner if I just keep pulling it and putting more water into it. This one you'll see is a little more concentrated ink than my other sample. It's fun when there's a variation, isn't it? You can see that's a little bit darker here.
And you got one side of it darker than the other side, which is nice.
Yes, I want to try to have, with watercolor, I want to have that variation. And that's the part for me that's really artistic, where you don't necessarily stay in the lines. You might leave little parts white. It's very fun to do that. So now I'm going to take the red. Again, I'm going to pull a little water in there to make it not so heavy, because I want to have some parts be a little bit lighter. So again, because the designers at Stampin' Up! Already put the shading in place, it's going to come out darker where that where the shading is. Now, a trick with watercoloring on basic white paper like this is you don't want to over wet it or over paint it, because it will start to pill the paper. This is not watercolor paper tonight. This is just a nice quality Stampin' Up! Basic white paper. So if I were to keep going over it too much, it would start to pill. And again, that's not a worry. But because this is, I want there to be a little more shading here. You can see a little bit of lighter tones, but I want it to be even darker at the edge. So I'm going over with some ink that I didn't dilute, so that I've got, and let's see, I went out of the lines there. That's fun. That's fun. Okay, so I want it to be a little bit darker on that shade where the shadow is. Now, the last thing I'm going to do after each time I just clean my brush by wiping it on the scrap paper, I'm going to pick a little bit of brown, but I want it to be pretty diluted. Like I'm going to put quite a bit of water in it. And I'm going to use this just to make a little shadow outside the apple, just over where the light would make a shadow on it. And that again is like a personal preference taste. Some people would rather have it be really clean and not have that. But to me, that adds a depth that I personally like. So, okay. Now because I have all the inks here, I'm going to show you what I think is fun to do on the inside of this card. This card, some other stamps that are in the set is this really fun apple blossom. And so I'm just going to add that down in the corner. And then this is where I'm going to use a little of that petal pink, just to add some interest to the inside of my card. It's hard to see, this pink is very light, but I'm going to just sprinkle it in here. And I'm going to take a tiny bit of the red and make it have a little bit of red at the edges. If you've seen apple blossoms, they have those sort of the tones, the way that it changes. And so just have fun if you're playing with a water painter and ink. It can be very freeing just to explore the possibilities of the intensity of colors. Okay, so let's see, we're going to add our piece that we layered the paper on. We'll put some glue so we can layer this. Again, a nice thread along the edges and maybe a swiggle in the middle is all you need. And you'll put it on the card. There's not really an up or down. You can decide. I have it so that straight across pieces at the top and then the half is at the bottom, but you can create it ever you like. And yours, remember, like here's one that has red at the top. Here's one that has yellow at the top. Yours will be a different variation. Okay, we'll glue our white circle onto our green. And then I'm going to put this on with the dimensionals. So there's a little bit of bump. That's my focal piece. And I want there to be, I want it to jump out. Yeah. When you get to the edge of your dimensionals like this, you can take scissors and just snip. And so then you'll have some other pieces to use the edges. You can also use the edges as like a long strip. If you need a foam strip for something, then I often save my dimensional sheets so that I have those long pieces. So we're almost finished with this card. I hope you'll have fun using different art medium to color your apples. Put that in place. And then we've got this nice braided trim in the red color. And on my card, it might look like I made a bow, right? It's got the loops here. But really what I did was just loop the red, let's see, sort of zigzag like this. Can you see how there's no knot there, it's just zigzagged, because we're going to secure it with our little bit of greeting. So I hope I remembered in the kit that you have a couple little strips. I think I remembered. If not, you could, from other supplies, you could grab a piece of paper to do the greeting if you want. This stamp set has a lovely verse that says, "The greatest gift is a good friend." And so I'm going to use that greeting on the thin piece. Let me do that again because I didn't line it up very well, and I caught we say we catch the edge when that happens, if you get a little of the ink. I'm going to try it again and take my time here. Okay, still caught the edge a little, but that's okay. So now I've got the greatest gift is a good friend, and I'm going to put this together. I'm going to cut it up. You could have it go across the whole card, but I like where I cut between the gift and is a good friend. And now I have these two pieces to kind of layer here. I just think that adds a little more visual interest with the greeting over on the side instead of straight across. Again, it'd be really fun to experiment and see how you're using the supplies. You might make yours a landscape card and have your apple in this direction and have a longer greeting across the bottom or the top. I love all the possibilities. So now to secure this, what I want to do is get my greetings here in place. Now, if a greeting is hanging over a part that has dimensionals, it's a good idea to have dimensionals under that part that's hanging over. So I'm going to put my dimensionals on the back here over on that side. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm anchoring those two pieces together with these little dimensionals, because that's the part that's going to hang over the edge. The other part of this label is going to be on top of this. So that just needs a little Tombow glue because it's going to be level with this. Now, the glue that I put on there is going to help me anchor this little loopy piece, because this is sticky and it's going to go on top of the the ribbon. Now you can also glue the ribbon or tape it, to secure it. But I find that if I put some dimensionals under there, that's going to anchor the ribbon and secure the label to the card. So let me know if you have questions. You can put them in the comments or go off mute. I'd love to hear what was your favorite thing we did tonight, or a tip that you learned that you liked. It's fun. I always welcome recommendations for something you'd like to learn. So if you're looking at craft magazines or the Stampin' Up! Catalog, or you looking at other things you see on the computer and you're curious, I don't have all supplies, but often I can substitute something that would make it fun to learn together. We have one more here, this little sled. So,
I have a question about the sled. So the wreath that you put on there,
yep.
How many of the leaf things? I mean, you can do
Yes.
it 4, but I think
Right. I
more than 4?
overlapped them, so it's about everyone is like halfway overlapped, halfway.
Okay.
So I used all 8. But 7 is plenty. The 8 was just a little bit to like add extra layering.
Okay.
So if you wanted to use them at a different project, you could use fewer, but I like the layeredness of it, just makes it a little more realistic.
Mm-hmm. And you just put a bit of glue on the stems of that? You didn't?
All I did was make that circle of glue on the sled,
Okay.
and then I put them on, because you could do it a little bit of glue on the wreath, but it would just get fussy because these are so narrow. So the easiest thing is just make that little circle. And then if you look closely, you can see a little bit of the shine of the glue. And if you pushed on it, there's a little bit of tackiness, but I don't think the recipient would really do that. I think, and plus it just actually adds a little shine. It doesn't bother me because obviously when you do the circle of glue, some of the glue won't get covered up just by the way the flurry of the wreath. But I'm glad you like the sled. I like the sled too.
Yeah.
And the recipients will be delighted to have these cheerful tags to decorate. And we've talked before about how presentation makes a gift really special and personalized. So if you love to make cookies, or you love to give a special candy at Christmas, or, whatever it is that's your kind of house specialty, even just a small amount that you can make and share with your coworkers and your friends and your neighbors, when it's wrapped up with a little tag, it's a very heartfelt gift. So it doesn't have to be fancy, expensive things, but when you dress them up with a little personalized tag, it's very much appreciated gift. So I wish everybody a happy rest of September and a happy fall. We look forward to next month. I believe it is October 12th, I think, is our next Zoom night. And the next in-person class will be October 13th, I believe, on the Friday morning. And we had a great group this past week. I welcome you to come, especially as the days get cooler and days get shorter. It's nice to do some morning time crafting. So I invite you to take part in our class that's on the Friday morning. And then, excuse me, and then to cozy up in your home to be a part of the Zoom class is a treat.
Right. This week was the Friday morning one actually was last week.
Yes.
This month. So usually where the Friday morning one follows the Thursday night one, because it's always on the second one of the month. Right. It worked out that,
it was earlier. So going forward, it might not always line up like it used to. It could be, excuse me, it could be whatever the second Thursday is and the second Friday. We'll keep it going forward like that. So people can keep track on their calendar. But yeah, we had a great group. And for our Friday groups now, you can choose either to make a Let's Kit Together kit, or you can make 4 what we call Missy cards, which this was one that we made last week. So it would be 4 cards that, use punches and used different strategies and tools to learn some more things, which is fun to do together. So I invite you to take part in that. There's always room for one more, and bring a friend and learn together. Well, thank you so much, Julia. Thanks everybody for being with us live, and for those catching us on replay, we appreciate you and wish you the best for a happy fall.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Julia. See you next time, friends.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.